Take a moment not to answer me, not to think, just notice where you are. Maybe you are driving home after another long day. Maybe you are laying in bed scrolling because sleep refused to come. Maybe you're cooking dinner, or maybe you're walking without really noticing where your feet are taking you. Or maybe you're sitting in a room full of people and somehow is still feeling like you're waiting for something, waiting for life to finally begin. Hello, and welcome back to From the Therapy Room Psychology of Mind and Body, understanding how we think, feel, pattern, and become. I'm your host, Jyoti, a clinical counseling psychotherapist. I'm really glad you're here. You're welcome to follow this space and stay connected. This is a space where we gently explore the inner landscape of human mind, where psychology meets lived experience, and where the stories we carry inside finally find language. Now let's come back to our topic, what we are going to talk about today. Before I start, can I ask you something? When was the last time you told yourself, once this happens, then I'll finally relax? Once I get married, once I lose weight, once I earn more money, once my children grow up, once I finish this degree, once I buy my own house, once people finally appreciate me, once my anxiety goes away, once everything settles down, then I'll start living. We rarely notice it while we are saying these things because they sound reasonable, responsible, practical, even hopeful. But what if hope has quietly become postponement? What if you have been standing at the entrance of your life, holding a ticket, waiting for someone else to announce that it's finally your turn? I don't think most people are afraid of living. I think they are afraid of arriving because arriving means there are no more excuses left. You know something fascinating? When I sit with people in therapy, people from completely different backgrounds, different ages, different profession, different cities, different stories, their words are different, but their emotional sentence is almost always the same. Not yet. I'm not ready yet. I haven't achieved enough yet. I'm still working on myself. I'll be happy later. I'll rest later. I'll love later. I'll forgive later. I'll become myself later. And somewhere, without realizing it, an entire lifetime quietly slips into the world. Later. We think we are waiting for the future, but often we are waiting for permission. I wonder who taught us that today wasn't enough. Think about that for a moment. Nobody wakes up at 5 years old believing I will only deserve happiness after 15 promotions. Children don't naturally think that way. Children laugh because something is funny. They cry because something hurts. They love without calculating whether they have earned the right to. So where did we learn? The life must first be deserved. I think this is where psychology becomes deeply human because the question isn't simply why do I procrastinate happiness? The deeper question is who convinced me that happiness needed to be earned in the first place? Sometimes the answer begins long before you can consciously remember. The invisible childhood contract. Children are extraordinary observers, not because they understand everything, but because they absorb everything. And child doesn't simply hear words, they study faces. silence, tone of voice, emotional distance, the way disappointment enters a room, the way approval suddenly lights up a parent's eyes, and slowly, without anyone ever sitting them down and explaining it, they begin writing invisible rules. Rules that sounds like this: if I'm successful, people smile. If I make mistake, love disappears. If I stay quiet, nobody gets angry. If I'm useful, I'll belong. If I need if I don't need anything, I'll be accepted. Those aren't thoughts, not yet. They are emotional conclusions, and emotional conclusions becomes identities. Psychodynamic psychology has always suggested something beautiful and heartbreaking. As children, we don't experience our parents objectively. We experience them as the architects of reality. If they are emotionally unavailable, we don't conclude they are overwhelmed. We conclude, I must not be enough. If they only notice achievement, we don't think they struggle to express affection. We think, I need to achieve to deserve love. And these conclusions become the operating system of adulthood. I'll be happy when something like this may actually mean I'll finally be worth loving. And listen carefully to your own future sentences. I'll be happy when I'll become successful. I'll finally relax when people appreciate me. I'll finally enjoy life when I have enough money. Sometimes those aren't financial goals, they are emotional translations, because underneath them, another sentence quietly whispers, maybe then. Someone will finally choose me. Maybe then I will stop feeling invisible. Maybe then I'll stop feeling like the child who never felt enough. The promotion was not never just about the promotion. The marriage was never just about marriage. The bigger house was never only about comfort. Sometimes we are trying to build externally the emotional home we never felt internally. And no achievement can fully repair a wound that never belonged to achievement in the first place. Carl Jung once suggested, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you will call it fate. Think about that sentence. How many of your goals actually belongs to you? Not your family, not society, not Instagram, not comparison. You. Jung believed something extraordinary. He believed many people spend their entire lives becoming the person they were rewarded for being, instead of discovering the person they actually are. He called this the persona, the face we wear so we can survive, the version of ourselves that receive applause, approval, acceptance, belonging. And there is nothing wrong with having a persona. We all need one. The problem begins when we forget that it is only a mask. Imagine wearing a mask for 30 years. Eventually, you stop remembering your own face. And maybe that is why so many successful people still feel strangely empty, because success can reward mask while the soul quietly remains unseen. Jung spoke about something called the unlived life. It's one of the saddest psychological idea I have ever encountered. Not because it is depressing, because it is true. The unlived life isn't only the dream you never chased, it's also the emotions you never allowed yourself to feel, the anger you swallowed, the tears you apologized for, the creativity you abandoned, the questions you stopped asking, the tenderness you hid, and the vulnerability you replaced with achievement. Sometimes people think depression always means sadness, but sometimes depression is the emotional weight of an unlived self. Imagine carrying around every version of yourself that never got permission to exist: the playful one, the artistic one, the gentle one, the curious one, the emotional one, the fearless one. They don't disappear, they wait quietly inside you. Here is something many people don't realize: living in the future can become a psychological defense, because the future cannot reject you, the future cannot disappoint you, the future cannot expose your fears, the future always promises maybe tomorrow. And so we stay there, planning, preparing, optimizing, perfecting, learning, healing, waiting, always one more step away from actually living. Sometimes people tell me I just need to heal completely before I start living. And I understand why they say that truly. But healing was never meant to become another waiting room. Healing isn't preparing you for your life, healing is your life. Can I ask you something that might feel a little uncomfortable? When did your life quietly become a checklist? Remember when you were a child, a butterfly could hold your attention for 15 minutes. You could spend an entire afternoon watching clouds become animals. You weren't trying to get somewhere, you were simply there. Somewhere along the way, life stopped being something we experienced, it became something we managed. Wake up, answer emails, pay bills, finish the presentation, reply to messages, book the appointment, clean the house, plan the next holiday, save for retirement, repeat. And before we realize it, we are no longer asking, did I feel alive today? We are asking, did I finish everything? Somewhere we confused completing life with living it. Think about how often you have postponed joy because you thought you weren't ready for it. How many sunsets did you barely notice because your mind was rehearsing tomorrow? How many conversations ended without your presence because you were mentally somewhere else? How many mornings have you woken up already living in the next month? And what if the life you have been waiting for has been quietly knocking on today's door all along? I really want you to notice something. Your mind probably didn't stay with the question, it probably tried to answer it. Because that's what the mind does. It searches for explanation, it wants certainty, it wants conclusion. But the heart, the unconscious, doesn't change because it understands, it changes because finally it feels seen. So today I don't want to give you more answers. I want to introduce you to the person inside you who has been waiting the longest. A child is still standing at the window, kind of. Just close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine a child, not any child, you, 5 years old or seven or maybe 10, standing near a window, watching the road, waiting for someone to come home, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to ask, how are you? Not because they wanted information, but because they genuinely wanted to know. Some of us waited for affection, some waited for peace, some waited for the fighting to shop, some waited for our parents to become emotionally available, and some waited for alcohol to disappear from the house. Some waited for criticism to stop, some waited to become the good child, and some waited just to grow up, believing adulthood would finally feel safe. The heartbreaking part is many of those children never stopped waiting. They simply become adults. The waiting changed its clothes. Instead of waiting for a father, we wait for our boss. Instead of waiting for a mother to approve of us, we wait for a partner. Instead of waiting for love, we wait for success. Instead of waiting for safety, we wait for money. But psychologically, it is often the same waiting, only the scenery has changed. The kind of attachment I'm talking, attachment doesn't end in childhood. It moves into every relationship you will ever have. One of the greatest misunderstanding people have is believing attachment only explain romantic relationships. It doesn't. Attachment become the lens through which you experience life itself. If you grew up believing love was unpredictable, you'll often experience life as unpredictable. If attention arrived only after achievement, your nervous system learns something dangerous. I exist only when I perform. Think about that. Not I perform because I enjoy it, but I exist because I perform. Now, your career isn't just work, it becomes proof of existence. Now, productivity isn't simply productivity, it becomes survival. Now, resting feels uncomfortable because resting feels like disappearing. Have you ever noticed how guilty some people feel when they do absolutely nothing? They'll sit on a sofa and within 5 minutes they feel anxious. Not because anything is wrong, but because their nervous system whispers, you're wasting time. You're failing behind. You should be doing something. That voice didn't appear yesterday, it has been rehearsing for decades. Your nervous system doesn't want happiness, it wants familiarity. This is one of the most misunderstood truths in psychology. People think the brain wants happiness. It doesn't. It wants predictability, even painful predictability. If chaos was familiar, peace can feel frightening. If criticism was familiar, kindness can feel suspicious. If anxiety has been your companion for 20 years, calmness can feel strangely unsafe. And suddenly, you understand something remarkable. You're not resisting happiness, you're resisting unfamiliarity. Your nervous system isn't saying, this is bad. It's saying, I don't recognize this. And the nervous system almost always chooses the familiar person over the unfamiliar freedom. This is why some people finally reach every goal they dreamed about, and within a week they create another problem. Not consciously, but unconsciously, because stillness feels foreign, waiting feels familiar. Have you ever noticed how admired busy people are? I'm so busy. I haven't stopped all week. I barely slept. I've got so much going on. We almost wear exhaustion like a medal. But I wonder what would happen if you had absolutely nothing to distract you. No emails, no deadlines, no phone, no meetings, no televisions, just scrolling, just silence. Would you experience peace? Or would you meet someone you have been avoiding yourself? Sometimes busyness isn't productivity, it's anesthesia. It protects us from meeting emotions that have patiently waited beneath the surface: grief, loneliness, fear, shame, regret. The questions we have postponed asking, because if we stop moving, we might finally hear the voice inside us saying, I'm tired, not physically, existentially. Human beings have an extraordinary imagination. We can mentally live 10 years into the future. We can rehearse conversation that never happen, create this disaster that never arrive, Imagine success that never satisfies us. The future become a psychological movie, and we keep buying tickets. After this project, after retirement, after marriage, after divorce, after children, after they leave home, after I lose 20 kilos, after this financial problem, always after. But life has an inconvenient habit. When after finally arrives, it quietly becomes another before. You finally get the promotion. Now you are waiting for the next one. You buy the house. Now you're worried about maintaining it. You get married. Now you're waiting for things to settle. You retire. Now you're wondering where life went. The destination keeps moving. Not because life is cruel, because the mind keeps relocating fulfillment into the future. Psychology has a name for this. It calls the arrival fallacy. The quiet illusion that once we reach the next milestone, we'll finally arrive emotionally. But here is what researchers have noticed: human beings adapt astonishingly quickly. The dream job become just another job. The new house become the house that needs repairs. The promotion becomes the new normal. We don't stay at the destination, we build another one. The mind says, yes, but now we need. And another horizon appears. The tragedy isn't that goals are meaningless, goals give direction, but they cannot give identity. They cannot answer the ancient question, am I enough? Because identity is never found at the finish line, it is carried by the person walking towards it. Existential therapists have long spoken about something that quietly haunts adulthood. Not death itself, but postponing life because we imagine we'll become someone else first. As though one magical morning we'll wake up wiser, brave, more confident, less afraid, finally ready. But life doesn't work that way. Confidence isn't what comes before living, it often comes because we dare to live. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's deciding that fear doesn't get to decide the timetable of your life. Carl Jung believed something that many people never hear. The shadow isn't only made of anger, jealousy, or aggression. Sometimes the shadow contains your greatest beauty, the confidence you were told was arrogance, the sensitivity you were told was weakness, the creativity you were told wouldn't pay the bills, the playfulness you abandoned to become responsible, the dream you quietly buried because everyone else called them unrealistic. Your shadow often holds the person you stopped becoming, not because you didn't want to, because somewhere you learned it wasn't safe. And now that forgotten self waits patiently, not demanding, not angry, simply waiting for you to come back. Perhaps you were never waiting for life. Perhaps life has been waiting for you. Think about that. What if life has knocked on your door thousands of times? In a conversation you rushed through, a sunset you barely noticed, a child asking you to play, a song that made something inside you ache, the smell of rain, a cup of tea, a quiet morning, a deep breath, a hug you didn't fully receive because your mind was already somewhere tomorrow. Maybe life wasn't absent, maybe you were. And maybe the greatest tragedy isn't that life ends, is that so many people spend decades rehearsing a future while missing the only place life has ever actually happened, right here, right now. There is a sentence that has stayed with me for years, not because it is dramatic, but because it is devastatingly true. One day, without realizing it, you stop saying one day. Not because you have finally achieved everything, not because life has become easier, but because there comes a moment when the future is no longer as long as it once seemed. When you are 25, 10 years feel like forever. When you are 45, 10 years suddenly feels frighteningly short. When you're 65, you begin measuring life differently, not by calendar, but by the people who are no longer here, by the conversations you wish you had, by the photograph that now carry more life than the memories themselves, by birthdays that arrive so quickly that you barely noticed another decade has passed. And that is one of adulthood's greatest shocks. Not that time moves quickly, but that ordinary days disappear without announcing that they were important. No one tells you. This is the last summer your child will ask you to carry them. No one tells you. This is the last time your mother will call just to hear your voice. No one tells you. This ordinary Tuesday will become one of the days you miss the most. We imagine the meaningful moments will arrive with music playing in the background with certainty, with firework, but they rarely do. They arrive disguised as ordinary life. I wonder, have you noticed how often we romanticize the future? We imagine there is a version of ourselves living somewhere ahead of us, the confident version, the peaceful version, the fulfilled version, the version who finally knows that they are doing. And without realizing it, we begin comparing ourselves not to other people but to an imaginary self who has never existed. I should be more successful by now. I should be happier. I should have figured life out. I should be healed. I should know who I am. That word, should, it sounds so innocent, but psychologically, it is one of the heaviest words we carry. Because every should quietly whisper another message. Who you are is not enough. And if you have spent your childhood believing that love depends on becoming someone else, of course, adulthood will feel like a never ending project of self improvement, not self discovery, self correction. Somewhere along the way, we stopped living and started managing ourselves. Have you noticed that? We don't just like, we just don't just live anymore. We optimize, we track, we monitor, we improve, we compare, we measure, we become projects. We wake up wondering, how productive was I? Did I achieve enough? Am I behind? What else should I fix? Very few people wake up and ask, did I actually feel alive today? The modern world has become extraordinarily skilled at teaching us how to improve ourselves, but remarkably poor at teaching us how to inhabit ourselves. If we keep asking, why do I keep postponing my life? Eventually, we reach a deeper question, what I'm protecting myself from. Because every psychological defense exists for a reason. Waiting protect us. If I don't begin, I cannot fail. If I don't love deeply, I cannot be abandoned. If I don't risk, I cannot be rejected. If I never become visible, no one can criticize me. Waiting becomes protection, but here is a tragedy. The prison that protects you also confines you. The wall that keeps keep pain out, keep life out too. This is why healing often feels frightening, not because you're becoming someone new, but because you're laying down the armor that once kept you alive. And every part of your nervous system asks, are you sure it is safe? The soul doesn't measure life the way the ego does. The ego asks, how much did I accomplish? The soul asks, how deeply did I experience? The ego asks, how many people admired me? The soul asks, how many people truly knew me? The ego asks, what did I accumulate? The soul asks, what transformed me? The ego lives horizontally, always moving toward more. The soul lives vertically, always moving toward deeper. This is why two people can have identical lives on paper and completely different worlds. One has everything and is still feels empty. Another has very little, yet carries an unmistakable sense of aliveness. Because aliveness has never dependent on possessions, it depends on presence. Let me tell you a story. Imagine a man who spends 40 years building his dream home. Every room is perfect, the furniture is beautiful, the garden is immaculate. He keeps saying, once everything is finished, then I'll relax. So he renovates one more room, plants one more tree, fix one more crack, improve one more corner, and one morning he realizes he has grown old. The porch where he imagined drinking tea has remained empty. The chair he bought for quiet evenings still look brand new. The sunset happened anywhere without him. I wonder how many of us are living inside that house, building lives but never pause long enough to inhabit. There is something we rarely talk about, not because it isn't important, but because it frightens us. We live as though time is standing still, as though life has quietly agreed to wait for us. We imagined there will always be another weekend, another birthday, another conversation, another chance to say, I love you, another opportunity to travel, to rest, to begin, to forgive, to become ourselves. But life has never made that promise. There is a quiet illusion we all live with that the future is guaranteed. Not intellectually, we know it isn't, but emotionally, we live as though tomorrow has already been reserved in our name. And maybe that is why we postpone so much, because we believe we have time, unlimited time, enough time to call our parents next week, enough time to repair the friendship next month, enough time to take care of health next year, enough time to start writing, enough time to love, enough time to live until one day life gently interrupts that illusion. A funeral, a diagnosis, someone younger than us suddenly dies. Our children no longer needs us in the same way. Our parents begin walking a little slower. We notice more gray hair in the mirror than we expected. Our birthdays stop feeling like celebration and actually become reminders. Not reminders that life is ending, but reminders that life is happening right now, whether we are paying attention or not. E- Existential psychology teaches something both unsettling and profoundly liberating. Most of us don't truly begin living until we remember that we won't live forever. Not because death gives life meaning, but because finiteness gives every ordinary moment a kind of sacredness. Imagine if sunset happened every 500 years. People would cross continents just to witness that. Imagine if you could hug your child only once every decade. You would never check your phone while holding them. Imagine if today were literally the last ordinary Tuesday you would never you would ever experience. Would it still feel ordinary? Or would you suddenly notice the warmth of your morning tea, the sound of birds outside your window, the familiar voice of someone you love, and if you were hearing them for the very first time? Perhaps the tragedy isn't that life is short. Perhaps the tragedy is that we assume that we have more of it than we do. And because we assume there will always be another moment, we don't fully enter this one. There is an old saying that I return to again and again: we die only once. But if we are not careful, we postpone living thousands of times. Every time we say not yet, every time we believe after this, every time we postpone joy until productivity is complete, every time we refuse to rest because we haven't earned it, every time we withhold love until we feel less vulnerable, every time we silence our laughter because it feels inappropriate, we quietly postpone another day of our own existence. And then one morning, we look in the mirror and wonder where the year went. But perhaps the years didn't disappear. Perhaps they were spent waiting for a life that had already begun. Maybe the opposite of death isn't life. Maybe the opposite of death is presence. Because someone can be biologically alive for 80 years and psychologically absent for 60 of them. Always preparing, always waiting, always becoming, never arriving. So today, I don't want you to think about how long your life will be. None of us know that. I want you to ask a gentler question. If this ordinary season of your life become one of the season you would one day miss, would you live it differently? Would you speak a little softer? Would you hug a little longer? Would you forgive a little sooner? Would you notice the evening sky before reaching for your phone? Would you finally stop believing that your life is waiting somewhere else? Because perhaps the greatest act of courage is not achieving extraordinary things. Perhaps it is allowing yourself to fully inhabit an ordinary Tuesday, to drink your tea without rushing, to look into someone's eyes without thinking about the next task, to laugh without guilt, to cry without shame, to love without guarantees, to rest without permission, to live before life quietly becomes memory. Sometimes we reduce presence to some sort of mindfulness exercises, to breathing techniques, to meditation app. Those things can help, but presence is something much deeper. Presence is allowing this moment to matter, allowing this conversation to be enough, allowing your child's laughter to interrupt your ambition, to exist without rushing to heal it, allowing joy without immediately worrying that it will disappear. Presence is saying, I'm here, not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. Perhaps that is why so many mystical traditions speak about the present moment, not because they deny the future, but because they recognize something psychology is only beginning to appreciate. The mind travels through time, but the nervous system heals only here. The body doesn't heal yesterday, the body heals. The body doesn't heal tomorrow, it heals now. Imagine reaching the final years of your life not as something frightening, just honestly. Imagine looking back. What do you think you'll remember? The emails, the promotion, the endless worrying, the nights you couldn't sleep because you're planning for the future? Or will you remember the smell of your grandmother's kitchen, the daughter's tiny hand wrapped around your finger, the friend who laughed until both of you cried, the evening sky after the rain, the conversation that changed your life, the moment someone finally understood you? Memory has an extraordinary way of revealing that what matters all along. It quietly edit out so much of what we thought was urgent and preserve what was meaningful. Maybe adulthood isn't about becoming someone else. Maybe it's about finally arriving where you have always been, not arriving at success or perfection or certainty, arriving inside your own life, inside your own body, inside your own relationship, inside your own experience. To leave you with advice. Advice is easy, transformation isn't. Instead, I would like to leave with you a few questions. Not questions to answer tonight, questions to carry. Ask yourself, what part of my life have I been postponing? Or what am I hoping the future will finally give me that I have never learned to give myself? Whose voice tells me I'm not there yet? If no one were watching, what kind of life would I choose? And perhaps the deepest question of all, if today wasn't merely preparation for tomorrow, how would I live it differently? Maybe life has never been asking you to become someone extraordinary. Maybe it has only been asking you to become fully present for the ordinary. Because when you really look closely, an ordinary life, deeply lived, is anything but ordinary. So the next time your mind whispers, I'll start living when, pause, smile gently, and remind yourself life isn't waiting on the other side of next achievement. It has been sitting beside you. In every sunrise you hurried past, in every conversation you only half heard, in every breath you took without noticing, in every ordinary day you assumed would come again. This has been from the therapy room, Psychology of Mind and Body. And if you find these conversations meaningful, if this conversation felt like it was speaking directly to your inner world, if something in today's conversation resonated with you, don't rush to move on. Sit with it, journal about it, talk to someone you trust, notice what emotions surfaced while you were listening. Please share this episode with someone who might quietly need it, because so many people live inside this pattern silently. And if you enjoy psychologically deep therapy room style conversation around healing, relationship, trauma, anxiety, attachment, and emotional well being, follow the podcast on YouTube or Spotify. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And until next time, be gentle with yourself and don't forget, your life has already begun. See you next time. I'll be sitting next besides to you. Take care.